Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello everyone, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. I made not the mistake, but I happened to see several reports this morning in the news all over the world. People being crushed in South Korea, exuberant partygoers. Over 150 people, young people, died just from stampeding. 100 or more killed in a car bomb in Mogadishu. I mean, the world is full of just bad behavior. I mean, I'm not minimizing it, but seriously, how do we contradict, or how do we push back against this tendency of bad behavior? Well, it starts with ourselves, doesn't it? And welcome to Buddhism. And on that note, again, thank you for your practice. Thank you. I just got another email this morning, one in a series of people who are quick to tell me that they are votaries of the Lotus Sutra and they too follow Nichiren's doctrine and they're trying to practice Shakyamuni's Buddhism. And please, please, please take down, hide that image of the object of worship in your videos. So I'm probably going to repeat myself a million times, so I'm going to do this once. I don't do it very often. I've talked about it before. I've certainly talked about it in the comments and responding to emails. But to all of you who are wondering why I do this, and it's kind of blown out. There's so much light on it, you can't really discern it, but it's there. So what do you see? Even if it was crystal clear, what do you see? You see, and to this indoctrination, this brainwashing of object of worship, let me enlighten you. The object is a verb. The object of worship is Gohonzon in your mind. That's where Gohonzon is. It's not on that scroll. That scroll is a perfect mirror for you to focus your samsaric senses to dislodge you from distraction and drive you to that inner Gohonzon. This mandala, Nichiren's mandala, is a tool. And what are we always told? Organizations, groups, wherever you learned it. The first thing, and I talk about this, the first thing to do when you encounter someone who's curious about Buddhism is get them to chant with you. Because chanting bypasses all of your human samsaric foibles and language and interpretations, because we don't want to communicate as Sylvain telling you what Buddhism is. We want you to investigate your own mind and discover the Buddha that's already there in you. This is Nichiren's teaching. This is Shakyamuni's teaching. Buddhism or Buddhahood isn't something you go hunting through the woods to find. It's nothing you have to qualify for. And that's the mythology about this mandala that I abhor, is these organizations and groups, and yes, Ikeda and Nikko or Niken, whoever's running Shoshu or anywhere else, is trying to get you to qualify to get this mandala. Newsflash, you already have Buddhahood. Isn't that the premise of all of this practice? So why do you need to qualify? You are qualified. Naturally. It gets me upset, obviously. My point here is, this is a channel, this is a resource for all of us to get charged up, to get more deeply convicted, our convictions get stronger, to keep our practice strong, to keep our efforts focused on our Buddha nature, which is innate. Nobody gives it to us. We don't have to qualify for it. All we need to do is make the effort to experience it, to be in it, to walk through our Gohonzon portal in our minds. And if you're here, it's because you're curious about it. And what's the first thing you're supposed to see when you're curious about it? Your Buddha nature. So I'm keeping this mandala prominent in my videos because it's well enshrined. It's in a protective, very respectful Butsudan. And it is what this practice is about. So get off your high horses and stop telling me to hide it, because that's not Buddhism. Okay. End of tirade. This mandala is your mandala. This mandala is the tool that Nichiren made for all of us to have a perfect mirror for the object of Gohonzon in our minds. That's not the object. Stop making it a noun. It is a verb. With respect. Moving on to the Lankavatara. All of you are Buddhas. It's time to start acting like it. That's what this is for, all of this. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you. Further, Mahamati, in the time to come, those wrong-headed ones who are inclined to false speculations owing to their deficiency of knowledge concerning truth and cause may be asked by the wise regarding that which is liberated from the dualistic conceptions of things such as oneness and otherness. Isn't this so applicable? Are you listening? Bothness and not bothness, and thus asked, they may answer saying, it is no question, it is not at all properly put, that is to say, the question, are form, etc., and transiency to be considered one or different? So what is that language pablum talking about? In the same way, nirvana and the skandhas, indices and indicated, qualities and qualified, realities and elements, seeing and seen, dust and atoms, knowledge and mendicants, are these to be considered one or different? I hope you're still listening, people who keep telling me to shun this mandala from my videos. Shakyamuni is speaking directly to you. Such questions concerning the various aspects of existence lead successively from one thing to another without end. And those who are asked about these unexplainable questions would declare that they were put aside by the emancipated one as impossible to answer. That's religiosity right there. Oh, it can't be explained. It's mystical. You have to qualify for it. You can't possibly know. We are made of knowing. However, these deluded people are unable to realize the meaning of what they heard from the Buddha because of their deficiency of knowledge. You've been betrayed. The Tathagatas, the fully enlightened ones, do not explain these things to all beings because of their wish to keep the latter from the fear-inspiring phrases. There's no magic here. Mahamati, these inexplicables are not taken up for consideration by the Tathagatas in order to keep the philosophers away from their wrong views and theories. Mahamati, the philosophers, may declare thus, what life is that is the body, or life is one thing, body is other. In these, they make inexplicable statements. It's nonsense. Mahamati, entirely bewildered by the idea of a creator, the philosophers make an inexplicable statement, but that is not found in my teaching. In other words, enlightenment doesn't come from somewhere else, from someone else, from this scroll. Enlightenment is you in your mind. It simply requires your paying attention to it. In my teaching, Shakyamuni says, Mahamati, discrimination does not take place because I teach to stand above grasp and grasping. Why are you trying to hold on to this mandala as though it were yours and not someone else's? Why does a religion, a sect, a cult of personality demand that you measure up, commit, and pay your fee so that you can have the Buddhahood you already have? That's a con. Obviously, I'm still upset about this because it's rampant in our world today. I'm not being disrespectful to Gohonzon. Certainly not. I'm demanding that my Gohonzon takes front and center, that your Gohonzon takes front and center. And this tool, this mandala, that reflects it, it's the first thing I want you to have. It's a challenge. This mandala is a challenge to you to awaken. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. And that's how we invoke that awakening. It's a very simple, straightforward practice. But people would have you jump through hoops to be able to practice what you already have. How insane is that, my fellow votaries? How could there be any setting aside here? If you understand Shakyamuni's teachings, everything happening moment to moment, at the same moment you're witnessing it, you're experiencing it, then how can you walk in and say, put that aside, these are different, you are not here, you are not here? But Mahamati, to those who are addicted to grasped my mandala, and grasping You have to reach for it. As they do not have a thorough understanding of the world, which is no more than what is seen of the mind itself, there is something to be set aside as inexplicable. I don't have to explain it. That's the rule. Mahamati, the Tathagatas, fully enlightened ones, teach the Dharma to all beings by means of the four forms of questioning and answering. As to the propositions that are set aside as inexplicable, Mahamati, they are made use of by me on some other occasions for those whose senses are not yet fully matured. Expedient means. But for those of matured senses, there is nothing to set aside. Let me read that again. But for those of matured senses, there is nothing to set aside. Further, Mahamati, all things being devoid of doing and doer are unborn. Your Buddhahood existed before any of us, but it couldn't be experienced until our sentient minds emerged. And as such, all of our sentient minds are built upon Buddhahood. It's our grasping and grasp, our samsaric addiction to possession that completely obfuscates that beautiful, clear mind. So all Buddhism is about is subduing all of those monkeys of ownership. Shut the hell up. Oh, look, there's Buddhahood. It's there all along. We simply lack the maturity to pay attention to it. So no, I'm not going to lock up my mandala like it's something I own. Mahamati, all things are without self-nature. All things are without self-nature. This mandala is without self-nature. It's a representation, a verb of reminding you, focusing you on your Buddhahood. Why? Because, Mahamati, when they are examined by self-knowledge, there are no such things obtainable which characterize them with individuality and generality. Therefore, all things are said to have no self-nature. Again, Mahamati, in all things there is no taking birth, no going out. Because, Mahamati, the signs of individuality and generality are seen as existing, and yet they are not existent. Right? This is the difference between our samsaric perception of things as permanent and possessions, when in fact everything is manifesting in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. The illusion of possession is that you're dragging previous moments along with you. Come on, stay with me. That's just complete magical thinking, because it's already gone. It's now anew in this perpetual manifestation of potential, constantly changing. Just because our senses are dull and can't witness down to the atom how things are constantly evolving, being rather than is. Language is ineffectual to describe this activity, but your Buddhahood knows it, feels it, smells it, sees it. They are seen as going out, and yet they do not go out. They continue to establish their manifestation of karma. Karma. Energy plus action. Energy plus work. Energy in formation. That's the universe. That's you and I. Knowing that, experiencing that, viewing and interpreting what we experience with that in mind as in the forefront, that's Buddhahood. It's not, Buddhahood isn't contained in stuff. It is an experience of the mind. When there is no mind, what need is there for a consciousness called Buddhahood? It's only experienced in this emergent mind. So it's a rare opportunity, isn't it? Nichiren talks about this all the time. I'm hearing a drip again. Okay. For this reason, Mahamati, all things are neither taking birth nor are they going out. Again, Mahamati, all things are never annihilated. For this reason that the individual signs that make up the self-nature of things are non-existent, and all things are beyond reach, empty. Therefore, all things are said never to be annihilated, because everything's a process. So nothing gets annihilated. It's just instantiation moment to moment to moment. To say something is annihilated is to say that it has a permanent, insistent existence. That's the delusion. Therefore, all things are said not to be eternal, because the rising of individual signs is characterized with non-eternality, permanence. Again, Mahamati, all things are eternal. Why? Because the rising of individual signs is no rising and no non-existence, and all things are eternal because of their non-eternality. The process, energy, in formations is ongoing. That process doesn't cease, and it doesn't really begin. It's because the issue always is time. And time-space is our samsaric delusion. From the moment this universe instantiated all of its potential manifestations began to, as it continues to do so, until its very last pop, is the process of life, which you're witnessing. That, awakening to that, is Buddhahood. And all things are eternal because of their non-eternality. Therefore, Mahamati, all things are said to be eternal. Thus it is said. The four kinds of explanation are direct statement, questioning, discernment, and setting aside, whereby the philosophers are kept away. The Sankhya and the Vaiseshika philosophers teach birth from a being or from a non-being. All that are proclaimed by them are the inexplicables. When the self-nature of all things is examined by knowledge, it is beyond reach. Therefore, they are without self-nature and unattainable as permanent or eternal. You have to understand the language of Buddhism. You have to peer beyond the simple words and understand the meaning, the concepts at play here. The words are standing in for where to look, where to mature your thinking. At that time, Mahamati, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, says to Shakyamuni, "Tell me, regarding the stream entered and their special attainment which characterizes the state of the stream entered, whereby I and other Bodhisattva Mahasattvas thoroughly becoming acquainted by the stream entered and their special attainment characterizing the state of the stream entered, will proceed to know the means and conduct which characterizes the state of the once returning, the never returning, and arhatship, and they will then explain the Dharma to all beings in this manner." Right? This is early teachings, right? What stream entered? What is that? You've heard that before. Do you know what that's in reference to? At this point, with everything that I've spewed out, you must have a clue what the stream is. It's not that, see, stream entered, again, with the words would indicate that you have to dive in to something other. But that would be a philosopher. The truth is, the stream is the ongoing process of life. Moment to 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 moment. That's the stream. You're in it. But you don't know that you're in it. You're too busy collecting seashells and rocks and sand and, right? I got to own this river. The movement of the water isn't the movement of water. It's the stream instantiating moment to moment to moment to moment. Constantly moving. Momentum, inertia. Statements about energy. Entering the stream isn't something you do physically. Entering the stream is simply awakening to being in the stream. That's entering the stream. It's a mental shift. Glorious rain. We're in the stream. Whether we know we're in the stream or not, if you're in a rowboat floating along the stream asleep, are you aware that you're floating along a stream, the river? But when you wake up in the boat, immediately you feel differently. You look around, you listen, you feel, oh, I'm in a stream. Sorry, lost my spot. Regarding the once returning, having understood the twofold forms of egolessness, having cleansed themselves of the twofold hindrance, they will by degrees go through the stages of bodhisattvahood, each of which has its own characteristics, and attaining tathagatahood, whose spiritual realm, mental realm, is beyond conceivability. They will, like a multicolored gem, and they will be like a multicolored gem and will accomplish what is good for the lives of all beings, providing them with every teaching, condition, deportment, body, and enjoyment. Again, Mahamati speaks from a standpoint of physicality, the physical ego, the physical body. The verbiage of that, and again, this is a translation, but all of those words indicate a condition of body rather than a condition of mind. It's slippery. It could be better translated, but you should understand that this has been Mahamati's block, his immaturity, his misunderstanding, his incomplete understanding all along. So the emancipated one, Shakyamuni, replies, "Listen well, Mahamati, and take well to heart, I will tell you." Mahamati, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, answering him, said, "Very well." And so Shakyamuni continued and then said, "Mahamati, in the fruit attained by the Shravakas, there three kinds are distinguishable." What are the three? They are graded, Mahamati, low, middle, and high. The low ones will be reborn 7 times, with their existence will come when their existence will come to an end. The middling will attain nirvana in 3 or 5 births. The highest will attain nirvana in this birth. Mahamati, for these 3 classes of the stream entered, there are 3 kinds of knots, weak, middling, and strong. What are these 3 knots? They are 1, the view of an individual personality, ego. 2, doubt. And 3, the holding on to moral practices, samsaric conventions, politic. Mahamati, when these 3 knots are in succession, promoted to the higher stage, there will be the attainment of arhatship. So what's he describing there? Because again, that's another one of those Buddhist word salads, right? What Shakyamuni is indicating for Mahamati's benefit, since Mahamati is still operating with the definitions, stream entered, of the Hinayana and earlier lesser teachings, and he's dragging them into Mahayana, because the Lankavatara is a transitional teaching, So Shakyamuni is trying to pull him through it and indicate that even though you understand Buddhism, you understand the stories of Buddhism, you continue to do so with the obstacles of maintaining your ego within it. And when your ego starts to break down, you maintain your ritual of it. You play at Buddhism. And eventually, with all of your knowledge, you letting go of your ego slowly but surely, and you're more convinced that by doing and practicing, it will come. So that's good. You have resolve. That's a better step. And then eventually, it's those things melt away. You still have 3 knots that you're not quite letting go of. And those knots include the doubt. Is this going to work? Am I doing it right? Do I understand it correctly? And all of those have a little bit of that ego left over in them, that identity. And it's not until you let go of all of those things and just be in the stream, don't enter it, be the stream, that you suddenly start to allow life to fully occur without clinging to the past, to the before, to anything, just experienced experience the process of thingifying, if you will, without thingifying, if that makes sense. Right? It's inexplicable, but it's not mysterious. It's a realization. Mahamati, there are two kinds of the view of an individual personality. That is, one, the inborn one, like a soul, and two, the one due to the false imagination. It is like the relation between the relativity view and the false imagination of the three Svabhavas. For instance, Mahamati, depending on the relativity view of things, there arise varieties of attachments to the false imagination. But this existence is neither a being nor a non-being, nor a being and non-being. It is not a reality because of the false imagination, and being discriminated by the ignorant assumes varieties of individual signs to which they are strongly attached, just as the deer does to a mirage. Mahamati, this is the view of an individual personality falsely imagined by the stream entered, which has been accumulated for a long time by their ignorance and attachment. This is destroyed when the egolessness of a person is attained, by which the clinging ceases. Is that not what I just said? And once again, a real world example of this is people who insist on the thingness of a mandala. I said this story a long time ago, but maybe it bears repeating. I was in a meeting decades ago with the NSA, and one of the leaders led this meeting of a bunch of people who had been accosted and brought to the house. That's how we used to do shakabuku, right? We'd stand in a strip mall and just kidnap people, really. They were willing, but basically we sold them happy little Buddhists running around. You got to come check it out, come to a meeting. So all these people amongst us, practicing Buddhists and people who had no idea what was going on, but were curious, were in this room, and this leader starts talking about, first of all, we chant. Thank goodness we chanted. And then this leader starts talking about what we do, what we Buddhists do. And to my utter horror, he turned toward the Butsudan and he indicated the mandala, and he said, this scroll here, and he turned back and looked at him, this is what we worship. I wanted to sink under the carpet. I was so embarrassed. This supposed leader was filling the minds of these curious people with this magical voodoo. It wasn't Buddhism. He had no depth of understanding whatsoever about what this mandala represents. And I have videos on this challenge about worship. You can enter that keyword, and I will explain to you that Buddhists don't do any kind of worshiping. That's an Anglo word. That's a westernization trick of language, and it's absolutely wrong. It is not what we do. We do not worship. We're trying to enlighten our minds. We're trying to peer deeply into the true nature of the universe. We're not pleading with some icon to fix us. That's worship. That's praying. That's religion. from pagan to Muslim, everything in between. I was horrified. And from that kind of broken thinking is where people start to consider that this mandala is magical. It's an incredibly powerful tool that Nichiren provided for us to understand and to peer into the nature of our minds that's already there, to instantiate, to inculcate our Buddhahood into our day-to-day thinking, minds. Nothing is being worshipped. We're simply training our minds to the clarity, the purification of our perception, our experience of life in full. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, subscribing. Patrons, amazing. Your support is essential for this Sangha to grow. Don't forget all the free information on threefoldlotus.com, the bookstore at lulu.com/spotlight/Kwun, which, by the way, is an old Chinese term for place of practice and learning. And the audio podcasts, all free. The Buddhahood podcast is what the name of the podcast is. If you're into a lot of people love those things. Just listening to these videos without having to watch them, so you can do other things while you listen. What else? Oh, and of course, the subject of this video, the sub-subject, if you will, the mandala store. cafepress.com/Gohonzon. Go get yourself a proper mandala, a Nichiren inscribed digital copy, but of a Nichiren inscribed mandala. Not Bob's mandala, not Niken's mandala, we're not practicing their doctrine. We're practicing Nichiren's doctrine. Get a clean mandala. I don't want my mirror for my Buddhahood to have some other guy's signature and date and his importance. He's not important to me. Nichiren is important. Shakyamuni is important to me. My Buddhahood is ultimately important to me. So yeah, why would I hold this back from you? What would be my agenda for doing that? Why would you trust me if I were hiding stuff from you and said, well, send me X amount of dollars and I'll send you one, and then you'll have one for yourself? Or jump through hoops, come here and smile at me enough times, and maybe I'll give you one for a fee. Yeah, we live in a world where there's a fee for everything. And yeah, I'm not giving away the mandalas that are printed on the Cafe Press store because it costs me money to make that happen. I'm just trying to do a replacement game there. But if you're really hard up and you can't afford to get yourself a proper mandala, I do have avenues to send you the digital copies free so you can print them out for yourselves. I'm doing everything I can to remove the obstacles to your practice. So once again, I deeply appreciate your practice. And with that, I wish you well. I hope you take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. Keep your practice strong, and I will see you in the next one. All right? Thank you. And as always, bye for now.